Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Hyphenate Halftime on Monday, March 10th. It is I, your hostess with the mostest, Mr. Randy Randall, and joined as always by my co-hostess with the co-mostest, Mr. Aaron Farley. How do you do, sir?
Oh, I like the co-mostest. That's good. On the spot.
Is that a bad word in Spanish? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
That is not written down in our notes. That is perfect.
I always feel like I have something I'm going to start with, and then it just comes out better like that if I don't think about it too much.
I would love it if people found out that this whole podcast that we actually wrote it down perfect verbatim,
word by word,
and we were actually completely on time, like on cue and on time, and we were going through the whole thing. Production. It
was done on purpose. Yeah. I think it comes across professional like that.
Yeah.
Well,
we wanted to sound natural, guys, but really we got to be in control. We can't have you going off the cuff like the co-mostest. That was a lot.
It took the writers team about 2 weeks to come up with that one. So I really want to respect all their work done there on the writing staff.
They sent that in, and they really workshopped that one.
Yes,
they workshopped it. They sent it into the people. And, yeah.
Well, I can never tell if this is somebody's first episode. You know what I mean? If they started with a halftime and like, what the fuck is this podcast?
Yeah.
And then the next one's like, now they talk to somebody. They're talking about talking to somebody. Like, does this even make any sense? I think I listen to so many podcasts that this does technically make sense in my mind, but I could just be insane.
I mean, I kind of think podcasts are just they're not supposed to make sense.
Okay. Well,
like there's a couple of them.
Check that off our list. That's perfect.
I do feel like there's the couple that you get used to that get a little bit more popular, and then you go, okay, I can see they're kind of doing like a news show, or it's really scripted and really written out, but they have a thing now, and they know where they're going with this, and then there's a lot of them are just like, I can make a podcast. What does that mean?
I can have cheeseburger.
I can just talk and just put it up, and I don't really know. I mean, we kind of know if people are listening, but you never know, and you're just making a thing. Just doing a thing. It's like kind of like having a band and never playing live.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I can see that. I see every show as kind of just a live improvised show as well.
Yeah, but then the curtain's down, so you can never see the audience.
Well, yeah,
there's no like audience participation, so you're like, we're like we could either be playing to an empty room, or there could be like thousands of people out there. We just don't know.
Yeah, so I've developed that skill from years of playing live to 0 people and thousands of people. It doesn't really make sense. I've found that the amount of people really has no difference on the kind of show that I would play. Or whatever I'm doing on stage has really very little to do with the size of the audience or the temperature of the audience or the location of the audience. I've developed that skill in myself of like, oh, this is for me. If I'm having a good time on there, they're probably having a good time. So I do feel like watching you and Dean play is you guys are just in it. And I say this in the most positive way, but you're in it for the money,
but in it for the performance, in it for the performance, and you're not like in the middle of the songs going, "Hey, Los Angeles, how we doing? Okay, let's go." The left side goes, "Hey, oh, hey, hey, oh," and the right side goes, "Oh, oh, oh." you're not
Again,
sitting there like trying
probably
to control the crowd.
to our own detriment. I mean, if we could figure out how to get everyone to do the hokey pokey, we'd probably be millionaires. But
Hey
it just
man, next
never,
tour.
it never
No way,
quite worked
Hokey
out.
Pokey
Oh
tour.
Lord, yes.
Hokey Pokey's
I think
among us.
It was a mix of respect for the audience and also just disregard for the audience. I was like, I think at some point it's just like, this is what we're doing here, and I appreciate that with bands. I mean, I don't like when they ignore the audience and you get no chit chat.
Doug Marsh.
I want a little chit chat. I could use
Yeah.
hey, wow, this is fun. Check this out. This is what we're doing.
Hey guys.
This is how we got here. Dean is great at talking about food on stage.
Oh,
because we usually, between sound check and show, we usually have eaten at some place at vegan near the venue, and I think somehow he feels as though that's engaging the audience, which
he can push.
It helps. You know what I mean? It counts. It counts as banter. It's kind of better than talking about the weather or the traffic.
Yeah.
Like, has anybody tried this Ethiopian place 2 blocks away?
Like who is it in Kiss that they have all of those?
Paul Simon, Paul Stanley.
Paul Stanley. Ethiopian. Oh my god, those like if he was just talking about food instead of like, we're getting wasted, who's out there smoking
reefer. What was his thing? It was always like, hi, hey. You had a bunch of hays or highs or what was it? There was there's the Fugazi one of that as well.
And he was like
the Fugazi talking, only the talking parts.
No.
Those are good too.
No. Oh my god, that's got to be the best. I do the one that I remember from the Paul Stanley one was the how many people are drinking alcohol? And I heard them for the first time not knowing really what they were, like, oh yeah, this is from Kiss, and then I was like, oh yeah, this is a joke. This has got to be a joke. I mean, it's probably like 20 years ago. I mean,
that kind of goes both ways with a band like Kiss. Like, is this a joke or is this real? It's like both.
Yeah. Well, I thought the whole thing like, oh, this isn't really the guy, and then you go, no, these are like legendary, like almost like Jerky Boys style. Like people used to tape these and send them around to each other, and like. And I was just like the legendary, like, oh no, have you heard the Paul Stanley mixtape or whatever? That's funny.
Oh Lord, if you Google,
alcohol,
if you Google 45 minutes of Paul Stanley stage banter, I'll put it in the show notes.
In YouTube, on YouTube, it's got to be on
the
there,
YouTube.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll put it's in the show notes. Go help yourself. You'll enjoy it. I'm pasting it in there right now.
Awesome.
And then what's the Fugazi one? It's going to work just as well.
So is that just all like Ian talking about stuff? Oh my god, that's amazing. The only time I ever saw Fugazi was that which I guess has ended up being kind of a like a talked about show, was that free show in Dolores Park in San Francisco, and it was like 2000 maybe 2001.
Uh-huh.
And it was Sleater Kinney first, and then Fugazi, and and it was great. I had never seen them before. They were one of those bands that I knew of them, but I always
Fugazi,
thought,
you
like,
mean?
Yeah. I mean, I just hadn't listened to them that much before.
Right.
I'd listened a little bit, but I had just in my head I had put them in this like, I don't know, this weird place, and then. When I don't know, I saw a video or something, and I was like, oh, they're not a hardcore. I mean, I guess I probably put them in with like Minor Threat or whatever.
Sure.
In my head, I had put them. And so then when we went to see them and I was just like, oh my God, blown away. And they're, it's Dolores Park, massive. So you can just walk. I mean, we were like, I don't know, 20, 30 feet from the stage or something. It was amazing. And then, he got mad at people like slam dancing in the middle, or running into the people, and he was talking about like people pogoing. It's like just pogo or whatever. And then some kid tried to get on stage.
Oh no!
Like, oh my God! It was the best thing ever. It was so memorable because Ian was like kind of scolded him, but they kept playing. He was scolding them, but then on the mic, he was like, "You don't need to hear we got enough people that are trying to fuck people up outside of this place and ruin people's lives, and we don't need to do that at our shows. It goes on this thing. He's like, if you want to do something effective and be violent, go across the street and throw a brick through the window of that bank. And I was like, oh, it couldn't have been said any better. I love it. And then he took him and he grabbed him and he put him on the ground and he sat on him.
Oh, Lord.
And then he played the rest of the song sitting on this kid, but the kid was loving it. Oh my God, he was so stoked. I mean, I think he kind of felt like, oh, wait, I thought maybe I don't even really know you guys. It's like he thought he was going to get up there and like crowd surf or something. And then, he finished the song sitting on the kid, but they kept playing. And then afterwards, he had a couple words for him. And then he just sent him back into the crowd and everything was fine. They went on with and it was great. The show was great. I think that was one of those times I brought maybe, like I got in the car, I was with a couple people and then maybe realized I only had one roll of film or something. And then was like, that's fine, I'm sure. And so by the time, I think I have 3 photos of Fugazi from like the middle, like with 100mm lens, but they're good ones. There's one of my favorite music photos.
It's amazing. No, I mean, I think Fugazi's one of those bands, probably, up there with most photographed bands. And there's some iconic photos. I mean, Pat Graham, being one of those photographers, former podcast guest, Pat Graham.
Yeah.
Really, documented a time and a space that'll live forever in black and white, with those kind of like framed edges and things. Yeah. That was wild.
I love it. Like started a whole, I mean, him and Glenn Friedman with their like printing, and then printing with the, you'd like take the negative carrier and you just file the edges out, or you'd make your own negative carrier just out of like cardboard. So the
that's why those edges
the
are
rectangular,
like that.
Yeah. So the rectangle wasn't perfect. And then, or you'd round them out. But a lot of times you take the metal ones and you just take a file and you like file it so it's a little wider.
Okay.
And then, but was then that
done to add? Was that done to add character, or is there like a practical reason for that kind of thing?
Just to look cool.
Because it looked cool. Okay.
Because it looked like dirty, and you're like, just like you don't care. Like, oh man, I don't
whatever.
Care. But you don't care so much that you spend hours filing down your negative. It's the best. But we used to make them out of cardboard because I feel like it was more difficult to. I mean, it was expensive to buy a negative carrier, and then you didn't want to screw.
What is
it
a
up.
negative carrier? I don't even know what that means.
So when you put the negative in the enlarger, so you have like the enlarger that has a lens on it and a light, and the light goes through the negative, through the lens, and then you focus that onto a piece of photo paper in the darkroom to expose it. And it's actually so it's almost like a light is shooting a photo of the negative through a lens onto the paper. It's almost like backwards photography. So it's going from the back of a lens through it. And then that is shooting it, exposing the paper, and then you put that paper in the developer. Well, what you have to do, so you always get your negative right in the middle of where the lens and the brightest part of the light and all that stuff. You have like a circular or a whatever negative carrier comes with your enlarger, and it fits into like a little bracket. So it's always in the middle, and it's always like on the brightest part of the light and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Well, but those were expensive. So if you were going to buy one, and especially if you didn't have that much money and you were going to buy one and then file it out, you'd had to buy 2 because you might want one that has regular edges or whatever. So we would just cut them out of so you just have to cut them out of cardboard. But then it would be cool because then the edge of the cardboard, you'd actually get that kind of frayed, almost like cloth look around the edge. And then,
I had no idea.
The secrets.
This is great. Photo time with Farley.
Photo time.
Farley's photo time.
But probably started with someone not having a negative carrier and just cutting it out of paper or mat board or cardboard and just doing it with an X-Acto knife on their own, and then going, oh, that looks cool. I'm just gonna keep doing this.
Yeah, I mean, like all things, it's an aesthetic art form.
Mhm.
It's nothing but aesthetic decisions at the end of the day are made.
Yeah, well,
Um,
and especially back then, because there weren't all that many options to make your photos look different.
God
Because a
damn.
photo is like a rectangle or a square,
Yeah.
and everything, and especially photographers, especially back then, but even now, they can be kind of like gear forward perfectionist, kind of like gearhead kind of people that like the lenses and the cameras and the technology and all that. I mean, it's a little bit like someone like guitar players.
I was
Like you
gonna say,
have the
I
guitar
don't know what
players.
you're talking about.
Yeah. You're like,
Obsessing over minutia and small,
yeah, you're like,
small.
let me turn my camera to this other side that doesn't have a wall of amps and every different pedal
Yeah.
you can imagine. But it's kind of similar. So then you have like the photographers is like, well, whatever, I don't care. And then you have the the people that are like the Yingwei Malmsteen, like every note has to be perfect and the guitar and the pitch and so you have those people too. So then I think especially back then when you're printing and stuff, there weren't that many. Also, photography is very fickle, and so when people did do weird stuff, people would go, "Oh, that's not real."
It would,
There's all these rules to photography. I mean,
elicit a
the
conversation
goddamn
around it.
rules
Yeah.
of photography for so long, of like, well, you can't do this, you can't, everything has to be, it's got to be real, and you can't change the light. Well, if you do change the light, it's considered commercial, or you have to tell people that you set up lighting. I mean, oh my god.
Oh,
It was a lot. So I think even back then, for those punk kind of early photographers, skate punk and all that, that were just learning, it's like, well, I'm the guy with the camera in the group, in the crew of people. Like, I'm the one that knows how to use this thing, and probably a lot of it came so much from trial and error that it ended up like completely almost creating a new art form of a type of like really dirty documentary work. Because I feel like, and again, I'm just making this up out of my head thinking about it right now, but that before that, documentary work was a very specific thing. Like, if you were going in to document a family, and you really had to, like, okay, we can't really set things up, you have to be, and if you do set it up, you have to tell people, because we need people to think it's real if it's going to go National Geographic, or it's like there's just all of these rules. And I think
mhm.
that those early skate and punk photographers were just like, they just didn't know any of that stuff at all, and so they just were like, we put your hands up and run forward with the camera, and just
The
capture all
handheld
these
flash
things. And
and sort of just, yeah,
yeah, and like,
move
let's
the
print
camera
it
around.
dirty. Oh, there's like dirt and stuff all over it, and we're setting up dark rooms and hotel rooms and whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it completely changed the art form to be way more loose and fun, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of people doing loose and fun photography before that.
No.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say too. I feel speaking of it, like from my perspective, my point of view of like from the world of guitars and stuff, is the 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 case of like whether something is intentional or done for whatever reasons you would infer, you know, the idea of whatever guitar you play says it says something, even if it's the one like, I don't even know what I'm doing, I just grab this guitar, like that's still
Yeah.
an aesthetic decision,
Totally.
and a thing that we're in a world where sometimes you can have this thing like, oh well, those guys are doing it because they want to look cool, or they're trying to do it because they don't want to look cool, or they're doing it because they don't even know what they look like. It's like, but at the end of the day, they're all aesthetic decisions, even, you know what I mean,
100%.
that you can't really like avoid that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think which ultimately leads to that kind of the larger sort of lifestyle culture writ large of it all being about, even your decision to not want to look stylish, or your decision to not want to look like this, or to have no style, or this kind of style, or it's all, or that's I'm too broke to afford these aesthetic things, so they just use what was affordable. Well, that
Yeah.
becomes a style. That becomes
Yeah.
a thing. You know
Totally.
what I mean? That anything that has a visual component to it, or anything, or like even with like recording, like I was recording on 4-track because I could afford it. Well, now there's a lo-fi aesthetic that has been
Yeah.
developed based around these things. You're like, I wasn't trying to make it aesthetic. I just use the thing. I really like all this stuff that looks like this, or that sounds like this. You're like,
Yeah.
Too bad. You had a cheap
Well,
guitar, played through a cheap amp, recorded with a cheap microphone onto a cheap 4-track cassette.
yeah.
That's your style now.
And then expensive mastering.
Yeah. But then later, but then this same band, maybe they get, they have a hit and now they go buy PRS guitars and play through nice, clean, things within record and high price studios. And it's like, oh, well, they changed. It's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, but maybe that was always the goal, was to do that, but they couldn't afford it or whatever it is, or,
Yeah. They always wanted to change. Yeah. I think it is a weird thing, because it's like, you're not going to get up there and play with the BC Rich, necessarily.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe
I don't own one.
a Warlock,
yeah,
or what are those? Like a Ibanez Warlock or whatever. But if you did, and you'd be like, oh, this is cool, but there would be a number of people going, that's a weird choice. Okay, that means something. Why did he do that? And it is weird, and it's weird now having kids that are growing up and like talking to our son, who's now 13, almost 14, and we were going, his birthday's coming up, and he wanted new snowboarding gloves, and we go to look, and I'm like, these are cool, and he's like, I mean, okay, so my pants are brown, but I don't want black gloves. I want like brown or something that goes with brown, but I always wear, and I'm like, oh, right. Like, even
this matters.
Like, I don't care that. I mean, I guess I still think about it. I'm not out there like in a full pink jumpsuit or something, but
that would be cool.
But I'm now in like black and gray.
Yes.
And maybe dark green, because then it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't need to be the big bright.
But that's an aesthetic decision. That's the dad decision of like, yeah, don't look at me. Totally. I'm just here for the.
Yeah.
I'm just here for
I don't
the
need
snow.
to bring any more attention to myself.
I'm not peacocking out here looking for that.
Not yet. I have to do more of that stretching you were talking about, and maybe I can get back into it.
But all of this is a great setup, for last week's interview with Jeremy Dean. You know what I mean? When we're talking about aesthetics and all, and the design and the cultural, cultural representation, and making do with cheap options. I loved his story of like the cracked rub-on letters, and then turning that into a font, and then that got used, on Vanilla Ice's record and Tupac's Machiavelli record and all of these crazy things, and this kind of weird thing that he was kind of emulating or sort of having a dialogue design wise with like a punk underground sort of culture of the 90s that became this very above ground sort of like font representation.
I know I love it. And the fact that it was his first font, that he was like, his friends were starting the foundry and he had this font and they were like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that looks great. That's awesome. And then it ends. And then I had to look it up. And then when I looked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, of course.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen that in like 1 million things. It's amazing.
Yeah. But it's wild. I mean, I think for someone like him too, that kind of came from this punk background, but in a very suburban kind of way, which I think is the not so secret truth of a lot of like hardcore, at least for this like, mid to late 90s version of whatever that hardcore East Coast thing. These are all kind of just middle class suburban kids. They created these insane names for bands that sounded really, tough, and made zines and all these kinds of things. And it was very. I was not privy, or I was never a follower or fan of that era of punk, or that style of punk stuff. But I mean, I've learned about it over the years of touring and meeting people and this kind of thing. But it's funny, I mean, when you hear the stories behind it, it's like, oh yeah, we're just fucking around. Yeah. It's like, okay, but everything seems so deathly serious.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody who's a fan of it is very serious too. Yeah. Only I didn't know as a 14-year-old could take something like this. Like Violent Solution.
Yeah, totally.
This is kind of gnarly, you guys. I don't know. I don't want that for the name of your band.
Like, everything is based on kind of like war and nuclear destruction and like destroying everybody else. Yeah. I love it. And but it's all about unity.
No gray area. No, like,
except for every band had like a unity song.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about any of the East Coast stuff either until I moved to LA, and then ended up having a bunch of friends who moved to LA from the East Coast. And so they were in all of that. And even like our friend Neil was in the band Fast Break, which was a East Coast Boston hardcore band that, you know, they toured, they were like 16 and they toured Europe in the summer, in like they just had like these
They wore starter
amazing,
jackets or champion sweatshirts.
just, well, they were just like suburban kids,
Yeah.
but then they were doing these, you know, unity, like straight edge kind of stuff. And the funny thing is now that they have they're the other day, so his son plays in bands now, and then his son's band actually covered a Fast Break song, and Neil was playing guitar, and we were watching the show. It was super fun. And then two of the other guys, from one of the guys from Fast Break is in Piebald now, and Piebald was playing in town, and so then they flew, their friend Don flew out too, and then they ended up doing like this impromptu show of these songs they hadn't played in whatever 25 years in like this record store in Riverside, and it was awesome. And all the kids knew the songs, like all the
That's
16,
the
17
wildest
year olds
part.
knew the
Yeah.
songs. And I don't know if it's because they kind of knew, and so they're like, you can just look at everything up now. They're like, oh, Fast Break's gonna play it, let me look up Fast Break on Spotify or whatever. But it is amazing. And so even knowing all of those guys now and hearing the stories, I'm like, okay, I don't know any of these bands, but it was heavy. Like
But it's
back
meaningful
then,
for
know,
somebody.
like,
Somebody's stoked. This is like their youth.
oh my God, all those bands. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Split Lip and Chamberlain, Curtis's bands
Oh,
and
right,
stuff.
right.
Yeah. So all of those bands like that, it's great. It's great knowing all those people and not knowing them by their band, like what band they played in first,
Yeah.
and finding out later after being friends with them for a while, like, oh, you were in a band.
There's a
Yeah,
bunch of
funny.
nerdy guys somewhere in New Jersey
Yeah.
that really were stoked on you dudes.
Oh my! Well, even when we were at that show, this guy, older guy, came in when Fast Break was playing. This older guy came in and he was like, "Hey, are you Neil from Fast Break?" And it's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh my God, man!
Dude.
Fast Break is my favorite. Is my favorite band." And then when I was looking on just the local, like, oh, who's playing at the shop tonight? Because it was like at a music store, and they moved all the guitars and stuff to the side, and then they have a little stage in there. And he's like, I saw Fast Break, and I was like, it's not like the real Fast Break. And then he was like, so I walked over here, and I was like, oh my God, this is a band that I never got to see live, and you're playing basically in my backyard. Yeah, so it's one of those. Yeah, it's funny. But that, and it comes to
hit
like,
your mic. I think your mic's humming.
is it?
There you go. That's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I loved the story that he's told about making the zine when they were like, they made their zine when they were like 15 or 14, and then 35 years later it ended up in a book. And he opened up the book and there's the zine that they made. Yeah,
It's wild.
so awesome.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, no, I think Jeremy. Yeah, he had so many great stories, and it just really feels like that kind of thing too, of just finding your way and figuring out like, okay, this is what I'm into. These are it's kind of a hobby, but this could also be a job, and what does that sort of balance look like? And it's in that kind of like hyphenated sort of way of like, cool, but I want to do cool stuff. I don't want to just be making like pamphlets.
Yeah.
For a living. I want to be able to like say I'm doing something cool, and then kind of like, fucking around with designs and logos and things, and kind of coming up and sort of bootlegging stuff that's, you really have no permission to use, but that's sort of becoming a new thing, and just hitting the zeitgeist at the right time.
Yeah. Well, and growing up with having his dad, I thought it was great when when he talked to it, he said his dad had an ad agency, and then you were like, oh, like Mad Men? He was like, no, like doing local advertisements for like the car company, and like actually placing ads in the local paper and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is like a legitimate ad agency, not just like a big fancy, like, oh, we're going to make millions, like, getting shoes onto billboards and Instagram or whatever. Like, no, he's legit, literally making local ads, and they have like their copy camera and all that. And it reminded me too that because my mom used to work at an illustration and design firm, I guess it would be
Oh,
considered a firm, when I was a kid, and she was an illustrator, but like pen and ink.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, and she so when we were kids, in between, she had to have somewhere for us to go, we would just go with her to work, and sometime like on the weekends and stuff. And she used to run the process camera at work at there, so they'd do all the design work, and then they'd put it up in this camera, and then they'd shoot like negatives of it in this big camera that was like the size of a room. And then you'd go in there and do the so that was the first time that I saw like negatives in a developing room, and dark room and all that kind of stuff. But then we would just sit on the floor, like we just had paper and pens and whatever, and we just sit on the floor and draw. But it was one of those things, because I did like to draw when I was a kid, and then going, oh, this is like a job. You can do this for a job. Like you can do art for a job, or you can do this camera thing for a job, or whatever like that. And those guys, especially back then, I mean, this would be about that same time, like in the early 80s. So they would set type, they would set type and do like, they had a big printing press as far as I remember. And then they would cut out type and do layouts, but it was all hand cut layouts and all that stuff. So even when he was telling all those stories, I was like, oh yeah, right. This is very
Again, a world that just doesn't exist, but it all that had to exist in order for the the digital version of it to to know what you're basing it off of.
Well, and even all of Photoshop and all those, like, still all those commands are still, it's still the same vocabulary as what it used to be. I mean, even for photo stuff like dodging and burning, and those are all like dark room vocab.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm definitely out of the loop on all that stuff. But it would make sense, you know what I mean? It's the same kind of way of like, in Pro Tools going from tape to digital, it's this idea that, you're still mixing and bouncing down, or, or committing to a track or something,
Yeah.
like stuff you would use, words you would use if you were doing it on tape.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I don't know if I really got into the whole story of it. It seemed like I tried to do in the interview, but I feel like I'm self-conscious of it. Like, oh, I don't want to retell a person's story back to them. But the way I found out about it, I don't know. Had you seen that We Can Discover the Wonders of Black Flag, like graphic thing? Yeah. Where it's like the big Grateful Dead Steely artwork with like the Black Flag bars inside of it. And I remember it was probably somewhere around like 2011, 2012. I saw that. And I was like, this is so funny. That's hilarious. Because I guess, some of the context, like Greg Ginn, the, kind of founding member, only solo member of Black Flag, was a Deadhead at the time.
Yeah.
And that was sort of part of their, like his way of like pissing off the punks. So, when him and Henry and everybody grew their hair out. And it was the sort of thing, like once they sort of knew what, the world was of punk was, it, was congealing around them. They wanted to just keep pissing them off too. So kind of the longer, sludgier instrumental guitar riffs, sort of made their way into the band. All Grateful Dead sort of imagery. So it seemed like, okay, like something on its face that would be very like, what's like punks and hippies, they can't be together. But
turns out there's a lot of, and also I hadn't really thought of the Grateful Dead being kind of punk, and which or using a lot of the same kind of
very DIY
ideas
sort
and
of thing.
Like,
that
just like, oh well, the mainstream's not gonna support us, so then we just should do our own thing and not have anything to do with the mainstream. Like we're gonna have this traveling circus that doesn't need any of the other stuff. Like that's fine. You don't need to play our songs on the radio, and you don't need to, like, we don't need any promotion. Like everybody knows we're coming, and we have our own internal everything, and them like letting people record the shows, and not. I just thought it was, it really made me think, especially the time we're going through now, that having this, these artists that are more interested in the art than the business.
Hit your mic again. Sorry, that mic's still buzzing. There you go.
It feel?
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe I pulled the cord.
I didn't want to step. You just step on your words.
No, but that having this time where the art is, they're still good at the business part. Obviously, they're making money, and there's a lot of people to pay and that work at, to make this thing happen and everything. But to not sit there and be like so litigious with like, oh my God, no recording devices, no anything, that they realized like, no, if we actually include the audience in this, like, yeah, you want to record stuff, great, okay, you want to be outside the venue selling, like, you have your own business that supports you to be on tour with us, and you guys you sell your thing out of your van and you follow us along, and that actually works for us. You're not taking, like, we don't need to like sue you for pennies of what we, or like your bootleg shirts or whatever. It's like, we don't necessarily need to sue you for the bootleg shirts, as long as you're helping us, like you're like feeding the monster that keeps going.
It's beneficial for both of us, for the band and for the fans.
And to not be so tight with like, this is mine, to be more like, well, we're making this thing for people, and we need people. So when the people are there with us, it helps us, and we get a lot of people paying buying tickets, and then we keep moving. And I think that it's an important lesson for those times where you can do that DIY and not feel like everybody's just stealing everything from you, although maybe it was a little harder to steal stuff. Like now you can steal stuff and just throw it on the internet and sell things on eBay, and like it does get a little bit like, ugh, okay, what are we doing this for?
Yeah, no, I've gotten a sense that the Dead & Co., the John Mayer version of it now, seems to have a little bit of a hand, keeping some of the bootleg stuff to within parameters, I guess.
Yeah.
That's why
I'd imagine.
But at the same time, I'm sure it's still that same type of mentality though. Like, it does, you can't have a museum of bootleg shirts inside, the venue. I think my wife Shan, she's gone to the Sphere here in Vegas to see the Dead & Co. shows, and I think they have like a art exhibit of all like the bootleg shirts and all of the things coming from the parking lot.
It's amazing.
And then shut down the parking lot outside too. Like, well, but we're just doing what you guys are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird, capitalism, right? I mean, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're watching it. I mean, in real time. We're we're like in the eye of the storm right now.
Yeah. So. Doing a Las Vegas residency for 4 weekends in a row and charging over $500 a ticket.
$500
or I don't know what it is. Maybe there's cheaper tickets.
A lot.
I'm sure there's a lot more expensive. I'm sure that's a good deal on some too,
But again, though, I feel like that's the move, right?
You get the market all of these. If the people aren't willing to spend that money and they have the money and they want to do it and it's worth it to them, then
and you're not like
no harm, no foul.
It's an insane experience, and you're like, we do the shows that everybody can afford, and then now we're doing like this craziest, weirdest, crazy thing ever, and it's going to be expensive. But Disneyland's expensive. What are we going to do? we also have a lot of mouths to feed. So here we go.
Yeah, but it's cool. So I think Jeremy went from doing these kind of like bootleg sort of Black Flag inspired tees, where he's actually working for the Grateful Dead company, making shirts for them and for their official artwork and things, and doing that kind of work. So it seems like it does all kind of come around at some point.
I mean, I really do think, and if you're good at what you do, but also you're just kind of honest with your intentions, I do think that most of the time goes a long way. I think it could work out more often than not if you're just honest with your intentions and you have a good idea. Like like, okay, I've been making these bootleg shirts, but it's a good idea. I mean, it's a real good idea, and you're like bringing these DIY, like everything. You're not putting like. It doesn't say Fugazi in the middle of it. Like that's not a good idea.
But again, it's the kind of thing, it's the other side of capitalism too, where it's like, if people didn't buy them, he wouldn't make them. It's not like he's
Yeah.
just making them to store them in boxes on his shelf in his garage. Everybody's buying them, so there must be a value to it. Must be seen as culturally, valuable or relevant.
Yeah.
Those ones going to
Well,
spend the money to get them.
and I do have to say too that even with the like the one of the obvious geniuses of Black Flag was to have a logo.
Right.
I mean, it's like what you have the Dead Kennedys logo, you have Black Flag, you have Circle
Misfits.
Jerks, the Misfits for sure. But think of those like Dead Kennedys, Misfits, and Black Flag is probably three of the most drawn on folders logos of all time.
Yeah.
And I would go and you just see them on build, like even when in Altadena I used to drive and there was like a big Black Flag
on the burger
logo.
stand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. And you're just
bars.
Like, that's so funny that it's just there. Like you drive by it every day. It's like
Vaughn's
that's still there.
Had a big logo thing they did. The Vaughn's shopping, the supermarket, which is the kind of offset bars. And like, it's, they're not quite as skinny. They're not quite as, they're slightly off, but again, four lines.
Yeah.
It's hard to really
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. And all of that stuff came from the bug spray. Like Black Flag was a bug spray. And
was that the actual logo of the bug spray?
It's not too far from it. I think it had some kind of it's supposed to be like a segmented black flag, floating in the wind kind of
like
thing.
Flying, right?
Yeah, like flying a flag. Yeah. But
I love it. But again, it's like it's capitalism, but it's
But also it's appealing to a type of
business.
Middle school kid, the same kid that likes Batman. Batman has a logo. Superman has a logo. And Kiss has a logo. You know what I mean? There's these types of things, that it just it's a type of visual language, right? That all Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all these things. It's a huge business to have a brand and branding and all those things.
Trying to make some honest money. Except for Ian MacKaye, no logos.
But
no
even
t-shirts,
that,
no logos.
you know what I mean? The choice to not have one, you still get something. You know what I mean? People are still making it. This is not a Fugazi t-shirt.
Oh my God. How many millions do you think Fugazi have been made just of all the people put together who've just put, this is not a Fugazi t-shirt, like on eBay or whatever? Over the years. I mean, it's been about 30 years.
Yeah. Maybe,
right?
You get a couple million maybe. But at the same time, it's just interesting because if you were interested, if that was part of your business model or your interest as a band or as a person or whatever it was, it shows the market's there. But then again, by rejecting it, it's like you're making an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, totally.
Because at the same time he was selling the records and selling the tapes and the CDs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he was not involved. You know what I mean?
We're also not selling music.
It's not like there was against all of the things. I think it was just, you pick and choose your battles in terms of whatever those things are. And it's the politics and economic influence of Ian MacKaye's thoughts have perplexed many a band for many years. I
love it.
You have to do battle with some kind of unseen force in the universe of, if you were a punk indie band through the 90s and early aughts, the question of what would Ian MacKaye do?
Yeah.
You'd make a t-shirt of that. WWIMD.
Ian MacKaye would do whatever Ian MacKaye wants to do.
That's probably it.
About it.
Yeah.
Like even when people are like, "Oh, you do this," and he's like, "No, I don't. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if bands have shirts. I just didn't want to have shirts.
Right.
I don't want to be a shirt designer."
Very personal opinions that kind of got adopted as cultural sentiment. You know what I mean? Like, okay, hold on.
I don't want to bring t-shirts in the van. It takes up space.
Sure.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm making enough money. It's fine.
That's the beautiful part about being a band or doing anything creative, and especially when you're doing it yourself, is you pick and choose your battles. You know what I mean? Like, is this the hill worth dying on? Like, is this the thing that we need to all figure out? And you've got to make it work for yourself. I mean, life's hard enough. as it
Yeah.
is. You know what I mean? If this is something that is easy for you and you can do it, then it works, and it's great.
And I feel like being grumpy about a couple things is usually works out for you.
In the
Like
long run.
whatever you're grumpy about, people are like, that's what they stick to. Like, oh yeah, you know what? I feel grumpy about that too. I
Yeah.
don't like that either.
Yeah,
Like
we all be grumpy. You're the guy that's
I,
grumpy about things. You're the grumpy guy. Like,
I still
all
love
right.
the best thing that I love about one thing that I don't remember if someone was telling a story about Ian Mackay or if it was actually him. I think I don't remember. It could be a reel. I don't know. But that he was saying he doesn't like using the digital maps on the phones because you're always in the center of the map and the map is moving around you, and that's not the way the world works.
A heliocentric point of view.
That you should be moving along the map, and when you visually see yourself in the center of the map at all the times, it ruins your view of the world. And I'm like, you're not wrong. I think
I've never thought of it that way.
I've never thought about it either. So he's like, yeah, so I use real maps because I want to look at the streets and I want to see like where I'm at on the map. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I love it. Okay. You know what, old grumpy man? You are right. You're 100%
you win
right
this
on this
time.
one.
Oh,
Although
yeah.
I still use digital maps because
Of
I
course.
need to see
It's so easy.
exactly the exact minute I'm going to show up because it takes away.
I really have to go to the bathroom
majority.
I drink way too much coffee and this thing is going to happen soon. So I better, I need to know when that bathroom is coming up.
Yeah, and it gets rid of a huge amount of my anxiety. If I'm like, I can look and I know that in 20 miles there's still no traffic. Like, oh, thank you. Or you can see where the traffic is going to end by the little red line.
Oh, that's funny.
And you go, well, I just got to make it to 44th Street or whatever. Yeah, I thought that was the best. I loved that because I'm like, now Ian he's even commenting on traffic. He's on cartography, like digital cartography. He's just, I love people who have like a sentence about everything. If you say one thing, they've either already thought about it or all their thoughts are so like succinct that they can just like point those ideas at any problem and they just have an answer for that works for them. It's not always the right answer, but it's never like a like I don't see him going, God, you know what? That's an interesting one. I just feel like he's just like, no, I know exactly what I think about that because I know what I think about everything.
The amount of confidence of having an opinion on any random thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've unlocked the secret of podcasting. Always have
Ian Mackay.
Well, or just always be confident about any random thing. Have an exact point of view on anything that anyone could ever bring up at any time.
And decide what you think about digital versus non-digital maps.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, always have that ready. Have that ready to go at all times because you never know. You never know when someone's going to ask you about maps.
It does make me laugh because at some point, many years ago, probably 15 years ago, I was interviewing Ian for something. We were at the Discord house and then we were leaving and we were going to go to the hotel. And he's like, oh, where you going? I won't do the voice, but where are you going? And we told him we're kind of roughly where the hotel was. And we didn't know because we weren't from there. We were just going to look it up on the phone. We had phones at that point. And I remember just looking at us like he was so disappointed in us that we were just going to use the phone because he's like, no, what you have to do. And he gave us the talking directions and was even going to like write it down on a piece of paper. And we were just like, why are you doing this? We're just going to use the phone. We're just going to like, this is thank you. Thanks for thinking of us. But he really wanted us to know how to get there and not rely on the phone as though, our choice was of less value than what he was recommending to do, how to get there.
See, you even have an Ian Mackay map story. That's crazy. I didn't even know this. I didn't know.
That's why I was laughing when you were talking about it. But it was, but there was a moment of like, you guys, like, what are you doing? You can't just use the phone. Like, you gotta how do you like,
it's just
what if the phone doesn't work? What if it doesn't happen? And I think we were just on the young enough line of things of just like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Like, I don't know.
What happens if all the power goes out in 5 minutes?
Yeah, we really have nowhere else to be. I don't know. Maybe we're gonna get some food or something.
I do love that he knows all of this. I mean, How many phone do you think he just has all the phone numbers? Like he just knows all the phone numbers, or maybe he has a little book. I bet he has a little book. Phone numbers, like a
It's
little
probably a book.
little tiny pencil.
There might even be a Rolodex on the desk at the Discord
Oh
house.
my God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
There's
I love that. As there should be. Why would you want? Again, you lose your phone, you lose all your friends. How many times have you gotten that email? Hey, sorry guys, lost my contacts. It doesn't happen that much anymore. But oh my God, do you remember losing a phone?
You text somebody, they reply back like, "Wait, new phone. Who's this?"
Yeah, new phone. Who's this?
Yeah.
You're like, oh wait, that means you didn't transfer my name into your new phone. Never mind. I'm sorry. Sorry to bother you. Sorry to bother you, Grandma.
Do you have any text threads in your phone that you don't know who they're from, but they've been ongoing?
No. Do you?
I have a few.
Wow.
And I just
like, hey,
I just
man,
don't want to
how's it
ask
going?
I just don't want to ask who it is. I was like, at this point, it's gone on too long.
You should have Shannon answer it as if it's like
sorry, this is Randy's phone.
Who is this?
But yeah,
who is this? Why do you keep even texting?
I feel very fortunate to have people who would care enough to send me photos or to text me about random things, and I don't always have everyone's number saved. And and I'm so bad at just doing the sorry. Who is this again? I should probably
who's it?
Just say it again. But it's also to me.
But it's been going for like 2 years.
Sounds good. Looks good. Years. Awesome, man. Good way to go. Good job. Sorry, can't go out. Yep.
Do you ever answer and like, hey, do you want to go to this show? And you're like, yeah. What do you like? What are you wearing?
Who are
and then
you?
You're just like, I'm gonna find out who this person is, and then you go to meet them, and you're like, oh, I still don't know who this person is.
I don't know. I've resigned myself. Again, these are good. I treat these as good problems to have. But when the random hellos, it's like, hey, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not somebody who's noticeable by unknown people. But there might have been a time and a place where I met somebody, and I just don't remember. I also chalk it up to I was a very heavy drinker for a great number of years. Yeah, probably met a lot of people in some form of like blackout drunkenness. So that but again, that's all many years ago, many pounds ago. I don't look like I did then either, so I'm okay to kind of misremember people, or when people don't recognize me. That's even better. Do you ever recognize people out in the world, but then that they don't see you? They're not giving you the head nod. You're just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fly under the radar here. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna engage. I'm just gonna let this thing roll past.
Yeah.
I don't want to be rude. I'm not trying to be rude, but if they're not making a big to do, I'm just gonna be like, okay, keep pushing my shopping cart. Let's go down to the next aisle. We're good.
Yeah. What do I have to say? It's like, I feel like at this point, if it's someone who could who you could help, or they could help, or you would be on the same team, if like everything just completely, if everything just goes insane like next week, you're like, is this person, are we going into battle together? All right. Maybe. We should probably say hi and catch up real quick.
Just make sure. Yeah. Same team. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. We might see each other on the front lines. I don't want to say that. That's not true.
But yeah,
everything's going to be fine. Everything's
fine all the time.
Yeah, it's fine.
Perfectly normal.
Things are good. Things are better now than they were 100 years ago, right? That's what people keep saying.
I don't know if I have a confident opinion about that. I have to think for a minute about that. In 1925, was it better than now? Probably, depending who you are, I suppose.
Yes, definitely depending who you are and where you were.
I would imagine, but that's not to say that
you might be catching the flu.
But I've
not
know
what the flu is.
Well,
yeah, but back then you didn't know what the flu was.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
There was a couple of years there we didn't know what this thing was.
This is true.
There was no real way to know.
This is true. We've gone through this.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe it's the same.
and the powers that be in America at the time, now I think are looking at some things in 1925 and thinking maybe life would be better if it was like that. That's
maybe from a different country.
Great again. So I'm trying to think of like, okay, some things seem
Who
fine.
knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, we got today. We got today.
We have today. I did go. I went snowboarding today, and I realized I'm
beautiful.
Looking at my my image and realizing I got sunburned.
Oh, great!
It was very sunny today.
That's a blessing to be able to be outside and get a sunburn.
Kids up there, 8th grade birthday. brought some kids up to the mountain and
8th grade birthday? Wait, what?
8th grade. Well, yeah, Towns' birthday is coming up.
Oh, right. He's
So,
in 8th grade.
so
Okay.
a bunch of
Yep.
8th graders, a couple 9th graders, but
Good Lord.
13, 14-year-olds going.
Wow.
Ripping it up.
We went to a 6-year-old, not 6th grade, 6-year-old birthday party today that had these like water pellets. They weren't quite, it wasn't like paintballs.
Oh, like out of a BB gun?
Yeah.
I've seen those.
They
kind of hurt when they hit
hurt. You? Yeah. It's kind of like getting like a handful of gravel thrown at you. You're like, that kind of hurt. Like I didn't enjoy that, but didn't break the skin. I'm not bleeding, but the kids, we did, get them switched because they're sweating too. Like change clothes. We got home. We're like, you have little welts all over your body. I don't know if that's good.
Probably it's go fun. Away. We're shooting each other in the face.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. I think the person setting it up said it's normally for 7 to 10-year-olds, but the 6-year-old's birthday party, and not all the kids were. Our kid's 5, but he loved the idea. Then they have these like inflatable things you hide behind, so you kind of barricades.
So it's full on like little kid paintball.
Yeah, the 2 different sides. They're shooting each other, and the woman who set it all up was playing Metallica loud, and she had a little microphone like, "All right, 2 minutes left, all out annihilation, go for it, rip their heads off."
Is that where you wore
your mercy?
Your WrestleMania shirt?
Yeah, I have my this is my fun weekend dad T-shirt.
Nice.
This is when I'm the fun weekend dad.
Is that the Ultimate Warrior?
Oh yeah, Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah. And Randy Macho Man
Macho
Savage.
Man.
Wow, what was that? 6? Number 6? Who else is down there?
You got the Hart Foundation. You got your Jake the Snake, Brutus Barber, Rowdy Roddy, Boss Man.
Oh, amazing!
WrestleMania.
I probably watched that one.
What does it say? Yeah,
6. It says.
Yeah.
What year was that? Probably 80 something.
86. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's look that up. I feel like that was right when I was fading out of wrestling.
This is where the fine line of our ages really shows. What WrestleMania was Donald Trump in? Let's see here. WrestleMania 6, 1990. The Sky Dome in Toronto.
Okay.
It looks like there was really the Ultimate Warrior against Hulk Hogan, but maybe Hulk didn't give his likeness rights for this shirt.
Wow. Okay.
It was the main event was Hulk Hogan
and the Ultimate Warrior.
And the Ultimate Warrior, yeah. Oh, it's so wild. Have you seen any of those documentaries about like the wrestlers, like the real life stories?
I have seen some. I heard an interview with Jake the Snake.
That documentary is amazing.
Yeah,
that is such a good documentary.
And then I watched some of the more recent. What's the one about the WWE starting, or the story of Vince McMahon or whatever?
Yeah,
and it was cool. But then I'm not
that cool
now that Linda McMahon is trying to just
she's
like
the
literally
Secretary of Education.
Yeah, because Yep. She knows as much about education as the last woman who Trump put in, Betsy DeVos, who was a billionaire and trying to get destroy public education, which is good. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you not want kids to have an education who don't have money? I think, they really have a great idea, and it sounds good on paper. So let's try to implement it and get all these kids out of school, and or at least funnel that money into private schools where you can kick kids out and not let them be in school. And that will be great for our society. I mean, I think really that's really where we're going. And we really want dummies. Like there's as many dumb kids as possible that just don't know anything. That's where we're supposed to go.
I'm laughing because I just looked up WrestleMania 7 and from 1991. Speaking of dead DeVos? Kids, yeah. I was like, this is the one I went to. I went to this one in 1991 when I was 10 years old.
Oh my
and
God.
it was during the Iraq War, the first Iraq War.
Oh God.
George H.W. And it was Sergeant Slaughter.
Was it the Iron Sheik?
Sergeant Slaughter, who was on the side of the Iraqi people versus the real American hero, Hulk Hogan. And this was at the sports arena.
Sergeant Slaughter was on the side of Iraq?
The main events, as per Wikipedia, the main event saw Hulk Hogan defeat Sergeant Slaughter for the WWF Championship as part of the storyline in which Sergeant Slaughter portrayed an Iraqi sympathizer during the United States involvement in the Gulf War.
Oh my God. Well, see, so all these companies, and this is the secret that no one wants to talk about. That
Give it to me. Give it to me straight.
Well, but that's definitely paid for. Like they definitely went to the government and got government money to, like from the advertising. You know, it's like the NFL gets a ton of military money for advertising, right? Like that's why they get the planes to fly over the stadiums and all that, because they get those government contracts for you know, bolstering the American, you know, whatever. Same way the CIA like bolstered the art movement with Jackson Pollock, the abstract expressionists.
Oh right, yeah.
I mean, it's and that's like
Cold War.
Yeah, and that's how the Guggenheims like got their, you know, big art. They took that money and made grants, and the artists knew nothing about it, and you know, now all those people have paintings that are magically worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh my God.
Interesting.
I love this. When
all paid for by the federal government that everybody hates.
When he returned,
the federal government.
Slaughter announced that he had turned his back on his country and had become an Iraqi sympathizer and follower of Saddam Hussein. He had also revealed an alliance with Iraqi military leader General Adnan, who became his advisor. Adnan having followed Slaughter from AWA to participate in the angle. This thing coincided with increasing tension in the Middle East that was ongoing at the time, which would eventually lead to Operation Desert Storm and American involvement in the conflict.
Oh my God. I had no idea. This is crazy.
It was great.
This ruins my day.
I went to this as a 10-year-old and just loved it. It was awesome.
So did they only have one WrestleMania? So then it was just in Los Angeles that year.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Of you know, a fake scripted sports entertainment.
But then it would be in a different city every year, like
still is. Yeah.
So
they still
but that's what I mean, like
and they go into like stadiums and places and just have the one that all the storylines are supposed to kind of like, you know,
converge into
this thing and then come out with something, and then that sort of kicks off the next year of.
But it's not always in LA. It's
no.
It'll be like in Austin, or it'll be like Dallas, and
yeah. I think one of the last ones we watched was like in Dubai. It was like in a giant arena there.
Again,
you know, where where Sergeant Slaughter would go to retire. Yeah,
Sergeant Slaughter and the Iron Sheik.
Oh Lord!
I always remember the Iron Sheik was amazing.
Oh well, yeah, the camel clutch.
The camel clutch.
This is probably racist. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say these words. The amount of stuff in my childhood that is problematic.
I wish I could do an Iron Sheik. I would need to listen to the Iron Sheik.
Oh well. That's just problematic and racist. And if I'm not going to do an Ian MacKaye voice, I'm definitely not doing an Iron Sheik voice.
This is true.
But no, he would call into Howard Stern. There's always hours and hours of very homophobic and very racist things that the actor or the performer would play the Iron Sheik would say, and whoa, I was not ready for that one.
And it almost, yep. I'm remembering some of that now.
Oh,
correct.
Boy.
Let's move on.
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, I think that's it.
It has been an hour.
Yeah, I think we did it. Yeah, that was it.
We usually end on the Iron Sheik.
We won. We won, everybody. There we go. Have fun. The intellectuals and the readers of the world. Yeah. You know,
don't worry, guys. College is the problem. Remember that. They're telling you college professors are the problem. Remember, that's the problem with the United States right now. Just remember that. That's my line. I'm now going to play the heel in our podcast. Listen here, Randy. I've been listening to some other podcasts, and I really think America is back, brother.
We're dumber than ever.
We're dumber than ever.
We don't need no books. I want to have some kind of like Bill Hicks inspired character, like.
Oh my God. Or Bill Burr these days.
Oh no!
Do you listen to Bill Burr?
Is he the next Bill Hicks?
He's like
super intellectual.
Yeah, he's like on it. Yeah,
oh, good.
It's good, but maybe even
we need
like
someone named Bill.
less like I feel like Bill Hicks was always just so angry about everything, and Bill Burr has that similar sentiment, But then it's just like the Boston guy. He's like, yeah, but I mean, I mean,
sort of
like
floats above
he's
it.
more just like, you guys are idiots. Like, why are we listening to these idiots? Yeah, he's great. He's amazing.
That makes sense. Good.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Billboard for president. We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Yeah, can't go wrong.
All right, brother.
Okay.
We'll see you next week. I'm gonna listen to some more podcasts, brother. I'm gonna get back to you with some real information, real info coming at you.
Finally, our podcast is taking that turn.
All right,
it only took a year and a half.
I'm gonna get a WrestleMania shirt.
Let's get that American advertising money. Here we go.
I'm gonna show up with a bandana next week.
Yeah.
Of the Stars and Stripes.
Oh, we could sell that. That'll be part of the merch.
If I can, I got to do more of that stretching though. See if I can rip my shirt in half.
These colors only podcast, or these colors don't cast.
Yeah. These
colors don't read. There we go. That's the one. Yeah. so there's no money in books. Like these colors don't read. Be a real American.
Yeah.
Quit learning the English.
Quit books.
Yeah. There we go. Perfect. Solved all the problems. All right. Have a good week, everybody. See you Thursday. Some more intellectual talk.
See you next week.